cover today is till versus no-till. This field was tilled in August, about the first week of August, and it was covered in a pretty dense mat of killed off foxtail and weeds. There's a lot of weeds popping up still after spraying a couple of times last fall and this spring. And the problem is this is a south-facing slope and the soil texture is very silty. So what you have here is a problem. You know, it's a moisture problem. And even though we've had some thunderstorms, you can see the dust. There's actually more moisture than I thought there was, but the first inch or so has no moisture in it at all. And so therefore, if you don't no-till drill your seeds down to where the moisture is, in this case it's at least 3/4 of an inch until you see any moisture. If your seeds aren't set in that moisture, they're not going to make it. As you can see, what made it here was the tillage radish. It's the only thing that came up. It didn't come up very well. I think it came up where there was a lot of seed and a little bit of extra moisture collected. There's a couple strips of it in here that actually really don't look too bad, but that's not really what I wanted. What I wanted was soybeans and winter peas to come up. Now I'm looking for a soybean plant and I don't see one. I see a lot of this purslane, which absolutely loves it around here in this silty soil. Not too much of a noxious weed, but we set it up to take over this food plot. I mean, these things weren't even here. It's only been a month, not even a month. Look at the size of this thing. We still have a little bit of foxtail coming, but we've got the foxtail, I think, under control. So what I want to do is please stay tuned, because if you wait, I'm going to go out to another field and show you a field that was no-till and has a limestone-based soil, which has a lot of decent clay in it, holds moisture a lot better, and what you're going to see is a huge difference. Now the timing is different, but at this point, what do you do on this field? So the thing to do now is to bring a drill in here and till in my fall food plot. I put 100 pounds of beans and 100 pounds of peas in here, and they all went to waste. I'm going to walk out here. I'll show you how bad it is. There's some clover there. I'm going to walk until I find a bean or a pea. There's not one pea in this food plot. Now that's not to say that they won't somehow like it a little bit later when it cools off, and maybe some will germinate. But I think what happened most likely is that turkeys came in here and ate probably almost all of them. So bean plant, there's another one. Some lamb's quarter, that's good. There's some milkweed coming. A lot of purslane. A little bit of grass, not too bad on the grass. So I'm pleased to see that the grass is pretty well under control here. But you can see the dust. I mean, this is a silty soil. However, if you go down an inch, we've been getting some thunderstorms, and there's a little bit of moisture in there. I can't tell if you can see that or not, but you got to be able to squeeze it and have it hold together like that. But you can see the texture of this is real fine. It gets like powder on top. Now, to fill you in further, what we did was we tilled this, and then we spread the seed by hand and then cultipacked it, just as an experiment to see what would happen. We tilled it with a rotary tiller, which makes a real pretty seed bed and everything, but you just don't have the moisture here. You have a southern exposure, a lot of wind, and August is just not a good time to put in fall food plots. We do have some growth of radish in here, but the radish is just, it's not the greatest thing when you have alfalfa and corn just over the hill, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away. Soybean fields, corn, alfalfa, everything that a deer could want over that way. So they don't give a shit about my radishes. Now, come October, it'll be a different story if they survive. Now it looks like we may get a thunderstorm again today, so that's good. And the nights are starting to cool off. I think once we get this front coming through, you get nights that are down in the 50s, that's when you want to start thinking about putting in your fall food plots. August is way too early. Alright, so I'm going to go and set up on that other food plot that we planted in the spring with no-till equipment. The reason that radishes make it where a lot of other plants can't is that they will put this taproot down. That thing is a good 3.5 inches long. So as long as there's a couple thunderstorms, that's all you need to keep this thing alive once they get that taproot going. The other thing I want to point out about brassicas in the summer is that they get attacked by aphids and beetles in the summer. So it's better to plant these in September, middle of September, something like that, after these bugs have gone away. There's just too many bugs eating the heck out of these. You see all that goings on. There's aphids that, I don't know if you can see those lighter colored specks. That's where they suck the juice out of the cells. And then you have a beetle that makes those shot hole feeding marks in there. You see that? So they get pretty tore up by insects in the summertime. And that won't happen if you plant them in the fall. Okay? Now, I don't know if you can see the difference, but this food plot was drilled in. It was drilled in the spring. So it's not really apples and apples because it was drilled in back in June, where the other one was broadcast in August. We have some nice sunflowers. 2 bees on this one, which is always cool. You want to help out the bees anytime you can. I would have put more sunflowers in. This seed was donated by Seedway, and thank you to Seedway for donating the food plot seed. We're out at Penn State Ag Progress Days area right now, and this is my demo area where I take people on tours. So we have in this mix grain sorghum, sunflowers, cowpeas. Cowpeas are up to my belt. And one of the things to point out about this spot is that we don't have any deer pressure here because there's 800 acres of nice forage of all different varieties for them. We also have some tillage radish in this mix. Tillage radish is looking pretty decent for being a spring planting. What I find is that brassicas do a little bit better in a mix if you plant them in the spring. If you put them in by themselves, and I'll show you down there what happens to them. They don't make it. They don't do well at all. Again, no browse pressure. There's some insect damage. There's also pretty bad foxtail problem in this field, but that's just the way it goes in this field. What else can I say about this? That's about it. The flowers will go to seed here pretty soon, and they'll provide a lot of grain Everything eats the sunflowers. Cowpeas I've had excellent results with planting in the spring. I'm not a big fan of the sorghum. I mean, you know, there's nothing to eat here for a deer. Until it makes seed, they do eat the seed heads, but it's a while till they make seed. It's a pretty long season plant. So I'm going to run down here and I'll show you some other mixes that they gave us to put in. But you can see that there's quite a bit of difference between trying to broadcast in droughty soil, which that silty stuff was, and high quality soil. What grows really depends a lot on what kind of site conditions you have. This is last year's brassica going to seed. Interesting. Brassicas can seed themselves in, but they hardly ever make it to where they're mature and making seed. There's some seed heads coming on that sorghum. Look at that. It's kind of interesting. Oh, what happened here? Oops. Brassica plot. Nobody sprayed it, and so you ended up with a bunch of foxtail, which pretty much took over the brassica plot. Now, in here we have a couple different things. We have turnips, which I'm also not that crazy about, because look what happens to the leaf. It looks like shit, you know. And deer they're not diggers. We're not feeding pigs, so I don't know what the point is of growing turnips. It's good for tillage, bringing nutrients up to the surface, but you can do that with radishes and you get a much better leaf. You can also do it with T-Raptor hybrid rape, which is what that is. Still doesn't look too good. But I guarantee you that if this were in a mix like over there, and it had some shelter from the hot sunlight, it would look a lot better. I don't like turnips. Foxtail, big problem. Now it's gone to seed, so 3 more years of that. And one last thing I want to show you. There's another planting down this way. Somewhere in here there's a moly. Look at that foxtail. Well, take my word for it, there's a clover plot in it. Here's the edge of it where it got mowed, so the foxtail wasn't in there. Okay, so there's another Seedway shiny bag product. So we have chicory and a couple different clovers. It looks like there's yellow blossom sweet clover maybe in there, and some red and some white. I really like what happened with the chicory. Chicory's pretty cool because it creates a nice carrot type root that gets down to where your moisture is. It's about 3 inches, 3.5 inches. And when things get real droughty and hot in the summer, and your clover isn't doing so well, even though this clover looks fantastic. Look at that. Pretty nice for being planted in June, let me tell you. Now, if somebody would have come in and maintained this food plot, did some mowing and spraying, you wouldn't have that foxtail, but I'll have to talk to the farm manager, see what I can get done here. Anybody have any suggestions? I don't know what to do with this, because every year they let it go to seed. I have no control over when they spray it, and what they spray it with and what they plant. I have to just ask for what I can get and take what I get. So yeah, this clover looks darn good. So I would say that Seedway product is pretty good. I forget what you call it, but it's I think there's 3 clovers and a chicory in there. Chicory looks fantastic. The cowpeas look fantastic. Again, sorghum, I don't know. Not sure why we have it. You know, it's a good cover crop. Holds insects. There's unbelievable amounts. I don't know if you can tell. If you can maybe just see in here, there's grasshoppers in here like crazy. So if you had it a little more sparse and it was a little bit more separated, like a turkey won't feed in there, but they might walk along the edge and feed on insects along the edge. They're just hopping around all over the place in there. So there's a lot of life in these food plots where you could see that there was no life in that other food plot that I showed you, because it's just not, there's no cover crop there. If we would have had this thickness of growth and used a crimper or sprayed it or rolled it and sprayed it, done something to keep the armor on the soil and the roots in the soil, there'd be plenty of shelter and moisture to grow whatever you want, especially if you drill them in. So that's the difference between different soil types, different planting times, and cover crops. So anytime you can use a cover crop mix, that's what you want to do. And then just hopefully you get some rain. But it was a long hot summer with very little rain, and look at this. Let me pull this up. I don't know. Now, very nice plants. And these can withstand a lot of browse pressure. Deer will peel one stem off, eat it. As long as it has a couple leaves, it'll put another stem out and keep growing. So, I'm sold on cowpeas. They grew up in New York. They grow here. They did not grow at that silty field, but I'm not giving up on that field yet. We'll keep trying until we figure something that'll grow there. Got a lot of problem spots, but I'll try to keep you posted on what I learn, and if anybody has any suggestions on silty soil, hot sites like that, droughty sites, please comment down below, because we're all learning. I have guys that come on these demo plots during Ag Progress Days that teach me a lot. You know, I'm out there trying to teach people about deer habitat, and there's always a guy that tells me something I didn't know before. So please comment, and if you like the content on this channel, please hit that like button and subscribe. That way more people get to see it, and we get to spread the word a little bit and share. Okay? So I'll see you next time. Be sure and hit the like and subscribe button and click on the bell so you'll be notified when there's a new video. And comment down below and let me know if there's anything you'd like to know more about.